If you're looking at solar power with battery backup as a solution to protect your home from a loss of the electric grid, then you're going to want to watch this video because we're going to be talking to Generac about how we can use a single solar and battery backup unit to provide emergency power for the entire house. Hi everyone, Joe Ordia here for Solar Surge, and for the past 8 years I've been helping families get their house set up to survive a loss of the electric grid. And of course, in most cases we're doing that using a renewable energy solar power with battery storage system. Now for today's video I've actually got a special treat for you because we're going to be joined by the team at Generac, and they're going to be explaining how the Generac Intelligent Load Management System works. Now what this means is that instead of in the past where we would typically have to install a separate critical loads panel for your protected loads that are going to be run on the battery system if the grid goes down, with the Generac load management solution we can actually provide backup power to the entire house, program the priority of which appliances to power on, so that way the system can do all the switching for you automatically without you having to do anything and without you having to install a separate panel. So let's go right to the interview. And we've got something a little bit different for you guys today. Today I'm actually going to be joined by Jeremy Niles and Noah Schij from Generac. And we're going to be looking at the Generac PWRCell and the Intelligent Load Management System. Because I think everybody wants to know, how can we back up the entire home using a single solar inverter and battery storage system? And so Jeremy is going to be walking us through exactly how this load management works and what this potentially means for you as a homeowner and potential system owner. So Jeremy, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, you're so welcome, Joe. Thanks for having us here. Yeah, so back in August of 2020, Generac did something that probably no other company in the space could do, which was, bring some technology from its, its long-standing generator business to the clean energy world. And what it brought over were these two devices here, our smart management modules and this automatic transfer switch that is adapted from the same sort that we use with our home standby generators. And I think that the results of this coordination of technologies has been a little bit underrated. And what they really truly unlock here is more performance. All right, more performance from solar and storage, which somehow we haven't seen yet in this space. Up until this point, if you wanted to get more power or more capacity to power your home through the course of a grid outage, of unknown duration, you had to plan for the worst, right? You had to add multiple batteries, to increase the duration or the amount of power that you get from your system. And what you get with load management is you change that relationship. You change that one-to-one relationship where you only get an increase in power capacity by adding dollars, proportional amounts of dollars to that system. With a higher performance system, you can actually get more protection from that system for your dollar. So by adding these load management aspects to your PWRCell installation, you can do a lot more with a lot less.
Excellent. So what does that look like for a typical home backup scenario? Let's say single family home, want to be able to back up home office, refrigerator, lights, bedrooms, and central air conditioning unit.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'm just showing the slide here because it has this nice picture on it. But we'll talk about the process here in a second as well. But this is what it looks like. This right here. This image is probably what you would see in the garage or on the exterior of that home. A single battery cabinet with anywhere between 3 and 6 modules, 1 inverter, and then you might also have. Sorry, this is a great image right here as well. You might also have that transfer switch, the PWRCell transfer switch, as well if you're doing a whole home backup installation. But yeah, each one of these products, plays a critical role in the system. But this is all you need to have.
Well, that's great. Now, in terms of how do you set it up, is it something that the homeowner would need to specify their priority loads versus their non-priority loads, or is that something that the installer would choose for them, or how does that work?
Yeah, that's like an aspect of technical sales that should definitely get done, in partnership, between the installer and the customer. The great thing about this though is that if you are a solar installer and you've ever been frustrated, while installing a backup power system, because say you didn't do the due diligence in the beginning and find out what your customer really wanted, then you go to install their system, you put their essential loads into a separate panel for them, right? And then they experience their first blackout and they're like, hey, there's some stuff that I wanted to have powered that wasn't powered. What's up with that? That's a really hard thing to deal with because it's very difficult to move loads in and out of a panel. But with this system, everything stays in the same panel, and so there's no moving it around. You're a lot more flexible, but you still need to do some pretty specific information gathering with your customer when you're doing this kind of work. You want to have a good idea of what is totally essential, and that's going to depend. It's going to depend on how long the outages that you're expecting are. It's going to depend on some of these things that are right here on screen, right? Where in the country you are, what kind of weather is going to be triggering these outages, or what kind of weather you'll experience during an outage. And you can imagine how this would be a really different story that you'll be gathering, if you're in Sonoma, California, or if you're in, say, coastal Georgia. It's going to be wildly different scenarios that you're planning for. And, in one, you might have, a well pump, propane appliances, and no AC. And in the other one, you probably have, gas utility line, city water, lots of air conditioning loads, that kind of thing. So the way that you're going to approach, designing one of these systems is a little bit different based on where you are, but I think you can get the hang of it probably within, 1 or 2 sales. We also do make this tool available to our installers, and this makes it really simple. This looks like kind of a complicated worksheet, but it's really not. Basically, you just you fill this in. It spits out a calculated load for you, as well as an estimated duration for that system, and you can basically play with these loads down here, and define them as either managed or not managed, and it makes it really easy for those loads to get sized, or for you to make sure that all the loads in the home can be covered with the system that you're proposing.
Absolutely, this looks good. Now, is this something that we can share with the homeowners as well in an editable format, or is it something just to be used with the installer?
I mean, it is, but this is something that I would recommend. So if you are an installer, this is kind of the process that you want to use. You imagine your first consultation with that customer. Maybe you're at the kitchen counter. Maybe you're on a Zoom call like we are here today. But you want to kind of walk through their home with them and try to develop a really good understanding of what's important to them. What loads they want to make sure they have on during outage. And bear in mind, your customer is probably a non-technical person. They probably never thought about this kind of thing before. And so there's a certain amount of coaching that you'll want to do with them. They might not be thinking about their well pump. But that is absolutely a load that you're going to want to have on in the event of an outage. Maybe they have an enormous HVAC system, and if having cold air in the home during a prolonged outage is an absolute necessity to them, you're going to want to talk to them about managing expectations around that, right? That's a big load. It can drain a lot of battery capacity. And so, you might talk about adding a soft starter to it to reduce, the initial locked rotor amps, startup surge power. Uh, you might talk about downsizing, to a smaller unit, or running a smaller unit only in the event of a power outage, that kind of thing. So, so yeah, this is kind of like a whole new angle to the consultative solar sales. Everyone out there selling solar today is, familiar with, measuring roof pitch and roof surface area and watching out for, skylights or whatever obstruction on the roof, right? Accounting for shade. This is when you start thinking about storage, it's a whole other ball game. A whole new set of skills you have to learn, when you go to sell.
So when you're looking at this from the aspect of we're going to back up the entire house, because this process I'm very familiar with now, and without load management technology, this is one of the most challenging pieces of designing the backup power system. Is that oftentimes the homeowner wants to run everything, or as much as they can, but we need to keep this within a realistic energy budget, not just in terms of continuous power, but also in terms of total energy consumption over the course of an entire day, because of how much energy the battery can store. In a case like this, where the homeowner does want to back up the entire house, but we're willing to prioritize certain things over others, is this a matter of having to put a smart management module on every one of those large loads and then just prioritize them 1 through 10, or are there some things that should just be off all the time when running in backup mode?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And yeah, the answer is both, totally. It's amazing how much power some of these larger 240 volt loads in the home can soak up. When you are doing that, that's a great term, energy budgeting. You might find that you can kind of come within budget by simply managing 1 or 2 big loads. The rest, you might just have like a hot water heater and an AC unit, for instance, that gobble up a ton of power and startup, that kind of put you over budget. And by putting, a load management device, one of our smart management modules, on each one of those, you can bring yourself within budget and deliver, again, a higher performance system that is never gonna, black out. You can imagine how disappointing it would be, right? The grid goes down. Your lights stay on, right? Because you've got this wonderful new battery system, but then some combination of loads turn on and boom, you're in the dark again. A load management system prevents that from being a possibility. This is how you ensure that your load, or that your battery system is going to perform the way you want it to. So this is kind of how it works. Imagine the rest of the system over here. You have your, say your inverter and your battery, and the automatic transfer switch over here. But we're just looking at the loads in the home in this diagram. And basically, you can imagine like the grid going down. You have the essentials here. You notice that none of them are managed. None of them have these load management modules on them. That should mean that these always stay on. So, the essentials, the lights, the fridge, entertainment, Wi-Fi, security, that kind of thing, that should all stay on all the time. Now, what's happening down here is we're going to see that, power can be shared between these 2 large loads. We have these prioritized 1 and 2. AC unit is number 1, kind of creature comforts. Number 2 is this hot water heater. Hot water heater, just kind of like a pro tip for everyone listening, is a great load to put on a low priority, because A, it gobbles up a lot of power, and B, it in itself is like a battery. It's like a thermal storage unit. So missing a few cycles on the hot water heater isn't going to set you back that far. You're still going to have hot water in that tank, and that's a great way to, again, do some energy budgeting. So what happens here is we're going to see a scenario happen where this AC unit kicks on. Maybe the thermostat, is reading a little high, but there's not enough power around, available to power, all the loads that are here. These loads are going to stay on, but what's going to happen is this load is going to turn off because it's managed. So basically, what happens is both loads drop. There's a short reconnecting period, and then this one reconnects first because it's the higher priority load. And so this is able to start up. And if after that startup, that initial startup draw, there's enough power, then both can come on at once. But this is how you basically prevent overwhelming the system. completely autonomously with no input from the system owner, from the installer, or anyone.
That's great. And so in your experience, you know, for a typical, and I know different parts of the country, things vary, but you know, for your typical single family home that does have central air conditioning, a water heater, you know, a clothes dryer, and things of this sort, how many of the smart management modules do you generally see per implementation?
I would say in the neighborhood of 2 to 4. And you can do up to 8 SMMs on our system. But I would not say that's normally necessary. One really cool thing actually is that our ATS actually has some load management capabilities built right in. So you know, in most cases, when you're doing a load managed installation, you're doing a whole home installation, which means that you're installing an ATS with it, which on its own can manage all the HVAC loads in the home without any additional SMMs. You can manage AC loads using SMMs, but you can also do it in a very elegant way with the ATS. Basically, this connects to the thermostat of the central air, and can, you know, turn it off when power demand on the system is high, or lock it out completely, as you alluded to earlier, if it's a very large system. So, you know, like a 3-ton AC, like the kind of the load out you described earlier with the washer, dryer, central air, etc. If that central air system is, you know, in the 3-ton range, you shouldn't have any issue. In getting into the 5-ton range, you know, that should definitely be, you know, maybe the largest load that you're talking about, and not be planning on running too much else when the grid goes down. Above 5-ton, that's the kind of load that you might want to lock out completely when the grid goes down using our system. And yeah, this sort of this funny little animation that you know, can show you how to, you know, kind of think about prioritizing these loads, right? And one thing about our SMMs is that they only function with 240 volt loads. And so, you know, the only loads that you're going to be managing at any time will be 240 volt loads. The rest of the panel will go into the, you know, essentials category, even if it's not something that's necessarily essential. Actually, I'm going to back it up a couple steps here. This hot tub, this is like our classic example. We're always harping on the hot tub. People have hot tubs, and this is something that basically, like, you should not have, you know, not try and run during a power outage if you want to keep the rest of your lights on. So this is the example we always show for the lockout category. And if there was, you know, again, something like a 10-ton AC unit, that would be another thing you'd want to lock out here. There'd be something that you just couldn't run during an outage. But yeah, things like the sump pump, the well pump, would 100% want to be, you know, in the essential loads. Those are definitely essential 240 volt loads there.
Absolutely. Yeah, but this is very typical to what we see. You know, well pump has to be on, even though it's a heavy load. Kitchen appliances first, then some other 120 volt loads.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of how the lockout happens, does that mean it is a smart management module that is configured to just always be off when the grid is off? That way we don't have to put it in a separate panel. We just have the SMM turn it off.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, that's the beauty of load management, is that, you know, at least from an installer's perspective, is you don't have to do a whole lot of thinking past installing the SMMs. You can see they're these really simple little junction box type. You know, these should look familiar, right? If you've ever been down the electrical aisle at Home Depot. But you open them up, and you have a couple controls in there. You have either a dip switch or a knob that lets you say what priority the circuit connected to that SMM is going to take, 1 through 8. You know, low numbers being higher priority. And then there's also a toggle switch or a jumper that allows you to, you know, say how it's going to behave during a grid down event. And so there's the option to lock out that circuit completely. And one cool thing is we have, you know, these 2 different sizes. We have, you know, 50 amp and 100 amp versions of this. a lot of folks think about these as, locking out individual appliances, but if you happen to have a sub panel in the home already, maybe for like a workshop or an outbuilding or a parent-in-law suite, you can actually lock out that entire sub panel with one of these devices. So no need to install a sub panel, but if you have one already, you can make managing loads really easy just by dropping or managing that entire circuit in one go.
Very cool. Yep. Yep. And then I see here you also talk about the Shore Start device for large motor loads.
Yeah.
So where do you typically see that come into play?
Yeah, this might be a great question for Noah. I can answer this to some degree, but I think Noah would probably give you a much better answer.
So the Sure Start unit is generally installed next to the air conditioner, but in theory, it could be placed in between the breaker for the air conditioner and the unit itself. And yeah, we can obviously speak to some of the specs there, but it's if you're going to lock out the air conditioner, then you wouldn't need the soft start. But if you want that to be a backed up load, then the soft start unit is highly recommended, and it will drop the LRA significantly. Often we see up to 60% reduction in the LRA.
Great. So yeah, guys, what we're talking about here is, some of these large motor loads, like the air conditioners, they have a huge inrush surge of current when the motor is first powered on. You can even hear it sometimes. It sounds like that electric humming where that inrush comes in to get that compressor going. So that kind of surge can really put a load on a battery backup system. So the soft start helps to absorb some of that, so it's not hitting the inverter and the battery all at once. Is that right?
That's
exactly it. Yeah.
Yep, that's exactly right.
Right. Okay. So if you're going to lock it out completely, no need to put the soft start. But if you are going to try to back it up, the soft start will help it to get started without completely taxing the inverter and the batteries. Well, guys, this has been a great walkthrough here. So as far as how people would go about getting this system set up, what should be the next steps for potential homeowner? They reach out to the installer. Do they go through Generac? Where should folks go that want to specifically take advantage of this load management system?
Yeah, that's a great question. And for the homeowners watching, if you don't have an installer in mind already, just go to Generac.com and you can look at our dealer locator there. Really easy to use tool. Just punch in your zip code. That allows you to find all the qualified installers in your area. They're all ranked by their level of participation in our Power Partner program. You're going to see reviews and star ratings for them, just like you're shopping on Amazon. So that's a really nice experience. Of course, if you have an installer you're already working with, just work with them. If they don't have information about PWRCell yet, I would send them to Generac.com, and they can learn more about PWRCell there and our whole home load management solutions.
Well, yeah, guys, again, I really appreciate the time today. We hope to stay in touch with you all, particularly as other capabilities move through the pipeline like we talked about. And again, just thank you for taking the time to walk us through the capability here. And we look forward to everything else that you guys have coming up soon.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for the interview, Joe. I really appreciate you taking the time with us.
Well, folks, this has been the presentation of how to do whole house solar with battery backup using the Generac Intelligent Load Management System. And folks, as always, if you're getting good value from the information on the channel here, make sure you click on that like button and click on that subscribe button. Those clicks are actually really important because it forces the YouTube algorithm to make the video visible to a wider audience. Now also, if you're interested in getting a quote for your specific home, whether it be for the Generac system or for other battery backup systems that are available, there's a link below. You can visit us on solarsurge.net, or feel free to email in to info@solarsurge.net, and we can get an estimate and a design put together for you. Well, folks, as always, thank you for taking the time to watch today's video. I'm Joe Ordia, encouraging you to get prepared and be empowered. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon.